The restaurant went silent. Forks froze midair, waiters stopped in their tracks, and even the soft jazz playing in the background seemed to fade away when the little girl marched in, wearing a sparkly pink dress and holding a crumpled photo in her tiny hand. Her voice trembled, but her words cut through the air like lightning. "My daughter-in-law banned me from the cruise," she said, her chin lifted high. But she had no idea I owned the entire ship. I sat there, staring, unsure if I should laugh, cry, or run. Because right before she walked in, I thought my blind date was just an empty seat. But nothing about this night was ordinary. Before I could even ask what she meant, the little girl looked straight at me, those bright blue eyes burning with a mix of innocence and courage, and whispered something that made my heart stop. And that's when everything changed. If you're still watching, make sure you hit like right now, because what you're about to hear next will make you believe in miracles and the power of kindness. Let's rewind. It all started 3 weeks earlier. I was sitting in my small apartment, staring at a dating app notification flashing on my phone. It said, "You've got a match." 3 words that, at 56, made my heart flutter and my doubts rise at the same time. My daughter, Megan, had convinced me to try dating again. She'd said, "Mom, you deserve someone kind, someone who listens." I laughed and told her, at my age, the only thing listening to me is my cat. Still, she helped me set up a profile. Linda, 56, loves baking and beach walks. I wasn't expecting much. But then I matched with James, a retired architect who enjoyed sailing, Italian food, and surprising people. He asked me to dinner at a quiet seaside restaurant, Blue Haven. I hesitated. Blind dates had never gone well for me. But something about his messages felt different. Gentle, thoughtful, a little old-fashioned. So that night, I wore my favorite navy blue dress, brushed out my silver hair, and put on the pearl necklace my late husband had given me. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful. But when I got to the restaurant, hope turned into embarrassment. The waiter smiled politely. "Table for 2, ma'am?" "Yes," I said, giving the name. "Under James." He checked the list, frowned, then shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no reservation under that name." I blinked. Maybe he'd used another name? Or maybe I'd been stood up. They still seated me, by the window overlooking the water. Candles flickered. The sun dipped into the ocean, painting the waves gold. I sat there, pretending to check my phone, pretending I wasn't the woman everyone felt sorry for. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The waiter refilled my water glass 3 times. Couples laughed around me. My reflection in the glass looked older, smaller. I felt foolish. And then, just when I was about to leave, a little girl's voice echoed from the door. "Excuse me," she said. "Is this the Blue Haven?" She looked no older than 8. Her hair was tied in 2 pigtails, and she was dragging a suitcase that was far too big for her. The hostess bent down to help her, but the girl shook her head, determined. "Yes, sweetheart," the hostess said gently. "Are you looking for your parents?" The girl shook her head again. "I'm looking for someone who's supposed to meet my grandma." I froze. "Grandma?" The girl's eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. She gasped, as if she recognized me. Then she walked straight over and stopped right at my table. "Are you Linda?" she asked softly. I nodded, stunned. The girl set her suitcase down, climbed onto the chair across from me, and whispered, "My grandma told me you'd be here. She said to tell you everything, because she can't." Before I could even find words, tears filled her eyes. "My daughter-in-law banned me from the cruise," she said, trembling, but she had no idea I owned the entire ship. The words didn't make sense at first. I thought she was joking, or playing pretend. But the way she said it wasn't a child's game. It was pain. And something about that moment, her voice, her courage, made my heart ache in ways I hadn't felt since my husband died. If you're still watching, leave a comment right now. What would you do if a stranger's child walked up to you like that? Would you stay? Or walk away? Because I stayed. I asked her name. She said, Emma. And that's when the story truly began. Emma told me her grandma's name was Margaret. She was supposed to be on a big family cruise today, she said. But my mom, her daughter-in-law, told her she couldn't come. She said it was a trip for younger people. My chest tightened. I'd seen things like that before. Older people left out, forgotten, treated as burdens instead of blessings. Emma wiped her eyes and continued. Grandma cried all night. Then this morning, she told me, Emma, you go to Blue Haven. You'll find Linda there. She'll know what to do. I was speechless. I'd never met any Margaret in my life. How would she even know I'd be here? I asked, more to myself than to Emma. Emma shrugged, playing with her bracelet. She said she met you once. A long time ago. A strange chill ran through me. The name Margaret stirred something distant, like an echo from another lifetime. As I looked at the little girl, I felt this deep pull, something inside whispering, don't walk away. So I didn't. I ordered her some warm soup, and as she ate, she told me stories about her grandma's kindness, how she'd raised Emma after her mom got too busy with work and friends, how she taught her to bake cookies shaped like seashells. She said she loved the ocean, Emma smiled. That's why she built the ship. I blinked. Built the ship. Emma nodded proudly. Yeah, Grandma owns it. The Silver Star. She said she used to design cruise ships before she retired. And that's when it hit me. The Silver Star wasn't just any ship. It was one of the biggest luxury cruise liners on the East Coast. I'd read about it years ago. The owner was a woman named Margaret Hayes. Could that be the same woman? Before I could ask, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, and froze when I heard the voice. Linda, the woman said softly. This is Margaret Hayes. I'm sorry to surprise you, but I think my granddaughter found you. My heart raced. She did. She's here with me. Good, Margaret said. Then listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you will sound unbelievable, but I need your help. I looked at Emma, her small hands wrapped around the soup bowl. Help with what? I whispered. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, Margaret's voice trembled. With showing my family, she said, what true kindness really means. Before I could reply, the call ended. The next sound I heard was the waiter, setting a new glass of water on the table, for someone who had just walked in. I looked up, and froze again. It was James. The man from the dating app. Only now, he wasn't smiling. He was holding a phone, the same phone that had just hung up on me. If you're still listening, hit subscribe, because this story is about to take a turn you'll never see coming. James slowly approached the table, his expression unreadable. Linda, he said quietly, I think we need to talk about Margaret. And before I could even speak, Emma gasped, her spoon falling onto the table. Grandpa, she whispered. The entire restaurant went silent once more. The spoon clattered against the table, rolling toward the edge before stopping right beside the napkin. Emma's little hands shook as she stared at the man now standing before her, the man I thought was my blind date. Grandpa, she whispered again, her voice trembling. James froze. For a split second, his face softened, eyes glistening with something that looked like guilt. Then, just as quickly, he straightened his shoulders. Emma, he said softly, you shouldn't be here. The entire restaurant felt like it was holding its breath. I sat frozen, my mind racing to catch up. Grandpa. That meant. James, the man from the dating app, was Margaret's husband. I couldn't find the words. Everything inside me twisted with confusion. The little girl across from me, who'd been sent by her grandma for help, was now trembling in front of her grandfather, a man I was supposed to have dinner with. Linda, James began, his voice low. I didn't plan for any of this to happen. But if she's here, that means Margaret knows. Knows what? I asked. He glanced around nervously. This isn't the place. Can we talk somewhere private? Emma immediately shook her head. No. Grandma said not to go anywhere with you until Miss Linda says it's okay. I blinked. Your grandma said that? She nodded quickly, eyes wide with fear. She said Grandpa might be mad. That he'll try to stop something. I looked between the two of them. James looked like he'd aged 10 years in a second. His jaw tightened, but his eyes were full of pain. I took a deep breath. Emma stays with me. Whatever this is, you can tell me here. James sighed, then sat down slowly, the seat that had been empty for almost an hour. The candlelight flickered between us, shadows dancing across his face. Margaret and I built everything together, he began quietly. The Silver Star, our company, our family. But after I retired, things changed. Our son married someone. Who didn't want Grandma around, Emma interrupted. Her voice was small, but firm. James nodded sadly. Yes. Julia. Your mom. She thinks your grandmother meddles too much. She didn't want her on the cruise because Margaret planned it all herself, to celebrate the company's anniversary. He rubbed his forehead. I tried to stay neutral, Linda. But Margaret took it personally. She thought I sided with Julia. So, she left before the cruise even started. I frowned. But if she left, how did she know I'd be here tonight? James looked down, ashamed. Because I told her. That confession hit me like a cold wave. You told her about me? Yes, he said quietly. I met you online, but not for a date. Margaret asked me to find someone kind. Someone outside the family. Someone she could trust. She wanted to prove something, about compassion. My heart pounded. You mean this whole blind date was fake? He shook his head quickly. Not fake. Just more complicated than you think. Before I could respond, Emma stood up suddenly. You lied to Grandma, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. She told me you promised to go with her. You were supposed to protect her, not let them hurt her feelings. The restaurant was silent except for the soft clinking of dishes in the background. James tried to reach out, but Emma stepped back. No. Grandma said kindness means doing the right thing even when it's hard. You didn't do that. Her words hit him like a blow. His hand dropped to his lap, and his shoulders sagged. I swallowed hard. There was so much I didn't understand, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a family argument. There was something deeper. James, I said gently, what exactly is Margaret trying to prove? He looked up slowly. She's been planning something for months. She said she wanted to teach everyone, including Julia, what family really means. She said kindness can change everything. I leaned forward. So what does that have to do with me? James hesitated. She said you'd understand when the time came. Before I could ask what that meant, his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and his face went pale. It's her, he whispered. Margaret. He answered, and I could hear her voice faintly through the speaker. Calm. Firm. James, she said. It's time. You need to bring Linda and Emma to the pier. James frowned. Margaret, please. Let's not do this tonight. Now, James, she interrupted. Before the ship sails. Then the line went dead. I looked at him, then at Emma. The pier. I repeated. As in, where the cruise is leaving. He nodded slowly. Yes. The Silver Star leaves tonight. My heart started to race. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than just a missed cruise. Come on, I said, standing. We're going. Emma's face lit up. We're going to see Grandma? Yes, I said. We're going to see Grandma. James didn't protest this time. He just sighed and followed us out. The night air was cool as we stepped outside. The ocean breeze carried the sound of gulls and the distant hum of ship horns. I could see the faint glow of lights near the pier, where the Silver Star waited, massive and beautiful, shimmering under the moonlight. As we got closer, Emma tugged on my sleeve. Grandma said when we see her, she's going to tell us the truth about everything. What truth? I asked softly. Emma looked up, her eyes wide. About why she gave the ship away. I stopped walking. Gave it away? Before she could answer, there was a loud shout from behind us. Linda! Watch out! James's voice echoed through the dark, and a black car screeched to a stop inches away from where Emma and I stood. The driver's door burst open, and a woman stepped out, her face pale and furious. It was Julia, Emma's mother. What do you think you're doing with my daughter? She snapped, her voice trembling with anger. Emma, get in the car. Now. Emma froze, clutching my hand tighter. No, Mom. We're going to see Grandma. Julia's eyes burned with fury. You're not going anywhere near her. Not after what she's done. James stepped forward, holding up his hands. Julia, please. Don't you dare, she hissed. You're the one who started this. The argument erupted right there in the parking lot. Voices rising, emotions breaking loose like waves in a storm. I tried to keep Emma behind me, but she suddenly broke free and shouted, Grandma owns the ship. You can't stop her. Julia turned sharply, glaring at her daughter. You don't know anything, Emma. That ship isn't hers anymore. What? I whispered, stunned. But Emma said. Julia cut me off. Margaret signed it over last month. She gave it all away to charity. Every cent. Every share. She left us with nothing. My breath caught. The entire ship, gone? James looked as if someone had struck him. That's impossible, he muttered. Why would she? She said she wanted to teach us a lesson, Julia spat. But this is cruelty. She's lost her mind. I couldn't move. The air around us seemed to thicken as the truth began to sink in. Margaret Hayes, the woman who built an empire, had given it all away, just to prove a point. And before anyone could speak again, a long, low horn echoed across the bay. The Silver Star was departing. Emma gasped. She's leaving. Without thinking, she took off running toward the pier, her tiny legs carrying her faster than any of us could react. Emma! I shouted, chasing after her. Wait! James and Julia followed, shouting her name, but Emma didn't stop. She ran all the way to the edge of the dock, waving her arms wildly at the massive ship as it began to move. Grandma! She screamed. Don't go! Then, as the ship's lights reflected off the water, a shadow appeared on the deck, a tall woman with silver hair, standing near the railing. It was Margaret. She lifted a hand and waved, slow, graceful, almost sad. And then, something strange happened. The ship's engines suddenly roared louder. The crowd near the dock began murmuring, pointing. A group of crew members ran toward the stern, shouting orders. Something was wrong. James, I said, fear creeping into my voice. What's happening? He didn't answer. His face had gone white. The ship, he whispered. It's not supposed to leave yet. And then, without warning, the lights on the Silver Star flickered and went out completely. Darkness swallowed the harbor. The crowd screamed. And Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Grandma's still on it. If you're still watching, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about family, love, and forgiveness. Screams echoed through the pier as the Silver Star vanished into the darkness. The ship's massive body, once lit up like a floating palace, now drifted silently across the black water. No lights. No sound. No signal. Emma's tiny hands clutched my arm. Miss Linda, she whispered, her voice breaking. Grandma's on that ship. What if she's hurt? I knelt down, holding her close. We'll find her, sweetheart. I promise. But truthfully, I had no idea how. James stood frozen, staring at the ship as if his world was collapsing right before him. Julia, her anger gone, was pale and trembling. "This can't be happening," she murmured. "She wasn't supposed to board yet. She said she'd meet us here first. She was supposed to teach you something, wasn't she?" I said quietly. "Something about kindness." Julia turned sharply toward me, her face twisting with guilt. "You don't understand. That woman, she's been playing games for years. Always trying to control us. Even now she's—" "Enough, Julia." James's voice was low, but firm. "You can blame her all you want, but this isn't about control. It's about what we forgot." Julia's lips parted, but she didn't argue. The sound of sirens filled the air, Coast Guard vehicles rushing toward the dock. Crew members shouted into radios, their faces full of confusion and fear. "The ship lost power completely," one man yelled. "We're not getting any response from the bridge." I looked out into the darkness. Somewhere out there, Margaret Hayes, the woman who had built an empire and given it all away, was alone on that massive ship. And she had planned this. I could feel it. As chaos unfolded around us, Emma tugged my sleeve again. Her little face was serious now, braver than most adults I'd ever known. "Grandma told me that if something bad happens, I should give you this." She reached into her pink suitcase and pulled out a sealed white envelope. My name, Linda, was written on it in neat, careful handwriting. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a folded letter and a small, shiny key. The letter read, "Dear Linda, if you are reading this, it means I've finally begun what I've been planning for a long time. Don't be afraid. I'm not in danger, but I need them to think I am. For years, I watched my family lose sight of what matters. Love turned into competition. Kindness became weakness. I built everything for them, yet they learned to take more than they gave. You once showed me what real kindness looks like, even when you didn't know it. That key belongs to something on the Silver Star. Use it when the time comes. It will open not just a door, but the truth. Margaret Hayes." I stared at the letter, my heart pounding. You once showed me what real kindness looks like. Had I met her before? I tried to remember, but everything was a blur. Julia grabbed the letter from my hand and read it quickly. "She's lost her mind," she said. "We need to call someone, tell them to stop the ship." But James shook his head. "No. If Margaret wrote this, then she's in control. She's trying to tell us something." "Tell us what?" Julia snapped. He looked at her, his voice breaking. "That we stopped caring. About her. About each other." A long silence followed. Then, Emma pointed toward the horizon. "Look," she shouted. Far off in the distance, a faint light flickered, one small beam cutting through the darkness. "It's the ship," she cried. "Grandma's turning the lights back on." But as we watched, that single light didn't stay still. It blinked. Once. Twice. Then 3 times. A pattern. "She's sending a signal," James murmured. "Morse code." I turned to him. "You can read it." He nodded slowly, squinting. "It says, 'Come find me.'" The words sent chills down my spine. Julia gasped. "Come find her? How are we supposed to do that?" I looked at the key again, its silver surface catching the moonlight. Maybe this is how. Minutes later, we were on a small rescue boat with the Coast Guard. Waves slapped against the hull as we sped toward the Silver Star. The ship loomed larger and larger ahead of us, dark, quiet, and eerie against the night sky. When we finally reached it, the crew lowered a ladder. I went first, clutching the key and Margaret's letter. Emma stayed behind with an officer, her little face pressed against the window, whispering, "Bring Grandma back." The deck was deserted. The air smelled of salt and steel. Every step echoed through the emptiness. "Margaret," I called out. My voice bounced off the metal walls. "It's Linda. We're here." No answer. We moved through the corridors, me, James, and Julia, guided only by flashlights. Family portraits lined the walls, the smiling faces of people who'd once seemed so proud. Now they felt like ghosts. Then we found it, a door marked Private Quarters, M. Hayes. My hand trembled as I slid the key into the lock. It clicked. The door creaked open to reveal a small room, elegant but simple. A desk, a lamp, and a single envelope sitting on top of a leather-bound journal. The journal was open, and the last page read, "If they've come this far, then they're ready to understand." Julia stepped forward, her voice cracking. Ready to understand what? And that's when the lamp flickered, then turned on by itself. A soft voice echoed through hidden speakers in the room. Margaret's voice. "Hello, my family," she said gently. "If you're hearing this, it means you finally came together for something other than yourselves." Julia covered her mouth, tears forming. "I wanted to remind you what it feels like to care. To search, to worry, to hope. Because for too long, I've been invisible to you. You thought kindness was weakness. But kindness is the only thing that keeps love alive." James bowed his head, silent tears running down his face. Margaret continued, "The Silver Star isn't just a ship. It's a mirror. It will reflect who you truly are. I've given everything away, but not to punish you, to free you. Because what matters isn't what you own, but who you become." Her voice softened. "And Linda, thank you. You once found my purse on a cold November day and returned it without knowing who I was. That act, small as it seemed, reminded me that good still exists in this world. That's why I knew I could trust you to lead them back." My breath caught. I remembered now. 10 years ago, I'd found a leather purse outside a bakery. I never saw the woman's face, but I'd mailed it back to the address inside, along with a note that said, "The world needs more kindness." Margaret's message continued, "If you're still here, then your journey isn't over yet. Follow the light on the upper deck. There's one more thing you need to see." The speakers went silent. Julia turned to me, eyes wet. "We have to go." We climbed the narrow stairs to the top deck. The cold wind whipped through our hair as the ocean stretched endlessly around us. At the far end of the deck, a single lantern flickered, next to a folded blanket and a small silver box. Inside the box was a note that read, "Everything I owned is gone, except one thing. My family. Don't lose that too." Julia fell to her knees, sobbing. James knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around his daughter-in-law for the first time in years. And then, faintly in the distance, we heard another voice, real this time, carried by the wind. "Linda." I turned, and there she was. Margaret Hayes. Standing by the railing, alive. Smiling softly as the moonlight washed over her. "I knew you'd come," she said. I rushed toward her, but before I could speak, she whispered, "They needed to lose everything to see what really mattered." James ran to her next, tears spilling freely. "Margaret," I thought. "I know," she said gently. "But you found me. That's all that matters." As they embraced, Julia joined, crying into Margaret's shoulder. For the first time, that family looked whole again, not because of money or pride, but because of love. Emma appeared moments later, brought up by the Coast Guard. She ran straight into her grandmother's arms, crying, "I knew you weren't gone." Margaret laughed softly. "I'm right here, sweetheart. And now, so are they." The ship's lights slowly flickered back on, one by one, until the entire Silver Star glowed against the horizon, not as a monument of wealth, but a symbol of reunion. I stood back, watching them. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Margaret turned to me. "Linda," she said, "thank you for being the light when the world went dark." I smiled. "It wasn't me. It was kindness." She nodded. "Exactly. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because this isn't just a story about a cruise ship or a family. It's a story about what happens when love is forgotten, and then found again. And remember, Sometimes the richest hearts belong to those who've lost everything, but never stopped caring.